This is Talking Tech with Alex Zaharov-Reutt on today's News Talk, TNT.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of Talking Tech with Alex Zaharov-Reutt here on today's News Talk TNT, where tech's incredible wonders never cease amazing, while also causing concern that technology may well be the end of the human race. Hopefully not. Now, we do have a very special guest today, but I'll get to our guest in a moment. I just wanted to share some LinkedIn news. LinkedIn is getting some new AI features. I saw these in the Superhuman AI newsletter. So many of these AI newsletters out there. Everyone wants to be the AI guru. The newsletter was saying that LinkedIn will have AI coaches modeled after real-life career experts that can give you personalized feedback. They also say that AI-generated cover letters and resumes that can be fine-tuned to specific jobs will be available. There'll be improved search results that make it easier for you to find a particular colleague or a company. And a tool is also available that lets recruiters reach more candidates with AI-generated messages. But how much is too much? Do all the recruiters and the companies, the HR departments now have to wade through a whole series of AI-generated resumes? Is it going to all be samey? I mean, look, this is an ongoing evolution. And of course, we do have AI tools out there that promise to make it, whatever you've written, undetectable by other AI tools, whether that's in a school or at work or elsewhere. So this, we haven't quite settled things down yet. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is what Apple has done in this space to really, put the defibrillators, right onto the chest of AI to give it a jump start and to do something different. We normally see Apple, sometimes, usually it's late. Usually it's last to something. But when it comes in, it then sets the standard that everyone else starts to copy. So look, let's go straight to our guest. His name is Chris Griffith. He is the former technology editor of the top Australian newspaper called The Australian. And he's got decades of experience in the industry. He's now freelancing for The Australian and other tech publications. So Chris, welcome back to Talking Tech.
It's been, I would say, the last couple of weeks is absolutely momentous in terms of all the announcements from a lot of companies. And you just announced LinkedIn on top of that. And so there's so much to talk about. And of course, a lot of what we're going to be talking about today will be available either soon or before the end of the year. We're not gazing into the distant future when we talk about these things.
Yes, I often recommend that people do watch the keynotes at my site, techadvice.life. The top story is the Apple keynotes. There are 5 videos there. The first 3 are sort of a cut-down version of what the new features are on the iOS, the new features for Apple Intelligence and how the privacy works. Then there's the Worldwide Developer Conference, which goes for 1 hour and 45 minutes. And after that is the Platform State of the Union for developers, where Apple goes into a bit more detail. But it's still more than easy enough for most people to understand. And it's really good to watch those things. And I like to say that they're like watching a sci-fi movie where it's all going to come true in weeks, like 12 weeks, as opposed to 400 years, like our Star Trek, future that we see in all those different movies. But look, as you alluded, we have had major developments from Apple and Google and Microsoft. But before we get there, let's start on the business side of the fence. Now, you've just come back from enterprise company SAP's major tech conference in the US, and you wrote an article for the Australian newspaper titled Biggest AI Breakthroughs That Businesses Should Watch. So, how are giant tech firms cooperating and bringing generative AI into more businesses?
Well, since I left the Australian, I've been attending some of these global tech events, Workday and Adobe and Dell, and now SAP, which is Europe's biggest business enterprise software provider. And it's an old company. It's been around since 1972, which makes it old in the tech space. And what's interestingly enough is a lot of the major tech firms like Apple, Amazon, Microsoft are clients of SAP. They use the SAP software to run certain aspects of their business. So they're well connected. And that was important in this because they announced the integration of generative AI with all of their business offerings, which, go from ERP right through to business AI and so on. And they're using some of those partnerships actually in their rollout of generative AI. Because what SAP is doing, and I had a long interview with their AI strategy officer, is they're not developing their own bespoke AI, generative AI model or engine. They've signed deals with Microsoft and Amazon and Meta, for example, and Google. That what they do is they'll be adapting in each of their business models one of those to it. So they're actually using bits and pieces of all the models for different applications. Sean Cusk, who is their AI strategy officer, telling me that they test them all in various different scenarios and they pick the one that's best. So it's an incredible collaboration between all these tech companies, and a lot of it because they're all SAP users and they're all heading in the same direction. So their whole AI approach is going to be using all these bits and pieces, and they showed demonstrations like using spreadsheets, like the chief financial officer could use a spreadsheet, and it might have figures on it, and there's a little AI box there, and they've called their own AI. They're given the name Joule, Joule, unit of energy, and people saying, well, typing in there, well, what if we tweak this? What does it look like? And all the figures in the spreadsheet just changes automatically. So they're using ordinary text commands in Joule to get massive changes to their spreadsheets, was one of their demos. So that's in the pipeline, and it's being rolled out pretty soon, right around the world to the clients of that company.
Yeah, look, I mean, in the enterprise space, it's a little bit like with consumers. You can choose which browser you want to use. You can have Firefox, you can have Brave, you can have Google Chrome.
Yep.
If you're on a Mac, you can have Safari. So you've got this choice. And in the AI world, it's the same. I mean, as consumers, we can choose the different AI systems. But Microsoft, for example, is very wedded to its Copilot, which is based upon OpenAI's ChatGPT. They've invested, as most of us would have heard about on this show and others, over $10 billion US. Google is, of course, very wedded to its own. And we're going to talk about Apple in a moment. But Apple, started with ChatGPT, and they're saying that you'll be able to use a whole series of different AI engines. You can choose the one that you want to use. So we do have all these engines out there. And you also wrote in another article for The Australian that the race is on to build these AI tools that talk to each other. I mean, different AI chatbots conferring with each other is something that actually has happened. And soon we'll have our own personal AI agent coordinating with everybody else's personal AI agents, writing emails and scheduling things on our behalf. I mean, letting us know and making sure we're okay with that. But, if there's a particular amount of time that's set aside, it can be given the autonomy to set appointments for us. And it's not just our personal AI agents that our AI agents will be discussing and talking about, but talking to those from businesses. So What is the progress in this space at a business level where all these business AIs are talking to each other?
Well, it's starting already. It's going to, I think, accelerate really quickly. At the SAP conference, they announced that Joule would be able to communicate with Microsoft Copilot. So you might have a business that runs SAP software, but uses, Microsoft's fleet of programs for calendar and Word and so on. So if in Joule you were needing to find out when a certain employee was available for a meeting, Joule could ask Microsoft Copilot to check what the calendar situation was and actually create a calendar entry. So Joule would ask Microsoft Copilot to do that, and Microsoft Copilot can also ask Joule to do that. So there was two-way communication. But this is really taking off because these agents, we've talked about agents for a while, that we can have agents for us. I mean, we had agents for buying stuff online, Amazon and so on. But the big benefit is they speak natural language. So the communication, one agent talking to another, they can speak just like I'm speaking to you. And so there's huge development that way. And I won't go into it a lot yet, because I think we'll talk about it when we talk about Apple. But one of the things that Apple announced, importantly, is when they were talking about Siri, is that Siri would be the expert on your phone, iPad, Mac, with AI. So you could ask Siri all about how to do things on those devices. Siri also is going to help with a whole lot of things like writing emails and stuff. But Apple said, well, Siri isn't really trained in knowing about the world like ChatGPT is. So what's going to happen is if you ask Siri what the recipe for tuna mornay is, Siri will say, well, look, I don't really know a lot about tuna mornay, although Siri at the moment will point you to a video about keto-made tuna mornay. But he said, but Siri will ask ChatGPT, and Siri will say to you, do you mind, if you like, I'll ask ChatGPT. So Siri will ask ChatGPT, ChatGPT will tell Siri will tell you all the details. So you can ask it. So the whole heap of asking anything that you have through ChatGPT will be available through commands to Siri. You won't need to run a separate ChatGPT app at all. So they're doing it, but the extension of this is hotel bookings. You'll be able to ask your agent, and probably within a year we'll see you'll be able to ask your Siri to do something like that, to connect up and do that, and there'll be nuance so that they can ask in plain language, and the hotel booking can come back, a bot can come back with the same detailed series of questions. Do you want a single king size bed or whatever, 2 queens, and all the various things, and that can be relayed back to you and answered. So we are connecting these up, and we can see them connected at monumental levels in due course. Because I asked Dr. Karsk from SAP, what about this conference? Could we have you throwing the whole organisation of this event to the various agents that can talk to each other about booking the flights of all the people who come, booking them into sessions, booking their accommodations, working out their meals, coordinating with restaurants, the whole thing done automagically, if you like. And he said that is likely what is going to happen. That was his reply. And I wrote that in a story that ran in the Australian before Worldwide Developers Conference, where that was confirmed further. We're going to be networking these ChatGPT things with enormous benefits, but I dare say enormous more concern about jobs and the degree of automation and where that leads as well. So I think that is a huge, huge move. What we've been talking about agents for a long time, I really do think we're on the brink of the whole agent thing exploding in the next couple of years, in my view.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, we have had these bots that were around before ChatGPT burst onto the scene that could answer questions for people, and they were primitive, but they worked. But they were not of the sophistication. Yeah,
they always were not referred you back to a human if they,
That's right, yeah. And, I mean, we know that Klarna, for example, sacked 700 of its customer service people, and the phone calls went down from 11 or 12 minutes down to a couple of minutes because everything was so much more streamlined and efficient, and the generative AI could answer questions in a much more sophisticated way. Now, we did see last month that OpenAI released its newest version called GPT-4o. That's the model behind the intelligence. And that's obviously their most advanced version. And we did actually see, if you haven't had a chance, I mean, there's a 26-minute video that people should watch, and they had a demonstration where you had one ChatGPT agent talking to the one from the phone company or the cable company, and those two could talk to each other and sort the whole thing out for you whilst you're there listening, if you want to listen, and just to have that annoyance of speaking to customer service people and dialing through all the different the voice, dial 1 for this, dial 2 for that, dial 3 for something else, and just having that, it was quite amazing to see. And also the voices were so much more advanced, and the communication, as we've just been describing, is so much more nuanced than Siri, Google Assistant, and Amazon. So what have your impressions been of ChatGPT over the past 3 or 4 weeks that it's been available, of the new version 4.0?
Well, you're right. You've given yet another example of the bots talking to each other already. Now, I think the actual communication that GPT-4o offers is fantastic. I loved the way that the animation. You want one of these because you'll never be lonely in your life again with one of these, because they
That's right.
they talk to you, really upbeat and colloquially, and they've got humour there. If you want a more professional tone, you can ask for it, and that. But they do speak like and interact with you like there's another human there. You realise they're not a human when in that demo video there was a big slab of code, and they showed that visually to the bot, and they asked the bot to explain it. And here was this, very congenial bot just spewing out in great detail exactly what the code did, and human couldn't do that. But I've got my own take about this. I think it's the most interactive and interesting dialogue that you'll get out of generative AI bots at the time. But it's got this vision capability where your audience might have seen this, where you can put your phone, wave your phone around a room, and it knows exactly what's there. It's got vision capabilities. So my take on this is that this particular model is well suited to going into robots, because they'll be able to see, they'll be able to chat with you in a normal way. So, the idea of the domestic home robot, I think this is the AI that's perfect for it. Now, if they teamed up with
Rosie the robot,
company like Hanson Technologies, which we've run stories of a few years ago, which actually looked like real people. They were they had kind of latex faces, and they looked fantastic. And Hanson used to put makeup on Sophie, and I did an interview with Sophie. And Sophie wasn't linguistically as adroit as this, and often didn't have an answer and would ask you a distracting question like, "What books do you read?" or something like that. But you put this with Sophie, and you've got a robot that, if you can make it mobile somehow, that could go into people's homes. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen all the time, but the combination of vision and really advanced communication skills is perfect for the home robot era. And I could see this being used in, occupational therapy in hospitals and aged care and stuff like that. I think it's probably the perfect aged care example too. But yeah, absolutely.
The Japanese have wanted this for decades, and this is all their dreams coming true. I also had a chance to interview Sophie, and this was before the Chat GPT revolution took hold. So it could have conversations, but it was stilted in the way that things were pre-Chat GPT. And of course, Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, when he gave his big presentation a month or two ago about the successor to the H100 chips that have kicked off the ChatGPT revolution, he had 8 robots on stage that could walk around, and a couple of the little robots from the Mandalorian Star Wars series. And I've seen demos where the robots, the ones from Tesla as well, they can pick up an egg and a glass without crushing it. I've seen another demo where a robot is able to sort things on a table, put it into drawers, stack dishes, and the mobility is there. I've even seen a clip in the past few days of a humanoid robot autonomously driving a car. Your car doesn't have to be autonomous. You just get your robot to drive for you. So we're definitely seeing this stuff happening very soon. But look, Chris, we've got to take a break. We'll be back. We've got so much more to talk about. So we could, yes. So look, if you've missed your favorite TNT show or interview, simply listen or watch it when you want, wherever you want. Just visit episodes on the TNT Radio website or on rumble.com, bitchute.com or brighteon.com. We are also on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple, where you can listen to podcasts or watch the videos. And with Apple's AI, you can see the transcription live as it's happening. Very cool. But we're on Google, Spotify, Amazon, Podbean, iHeart, and TuneIn. So there is no reason to miss out of anything on today's News Talk TNT. See you after the break.
Unbiased information.
Honest and forthright.
News without the misinformation.
It doesn't matter what side you're from. What matters is what you say, the truthfulness behind it.
Today's News Talk Radio, TNT.
Thank you for joining us back again on TNT Radio. Now, all of this leads us into Apple, whose new operating system announcements earlier this week, it's only been a few days, saw Apple infusing its own version of AI called Apple Intelligence, which is actually quite smart all its own. I mean, it does link into ChatGPT, but Apple was at pains to show that it was introducing AI at a system level throughout all of its own apps. No need to go to ChatGPT and then go back to your email and go to somewhere else like an image generation program. You could do it all within the apps you're already using. And also very easy for third-party apps to effortlessly integrate, and was one of the things for developers. And Apple Intelligence, which is a cute way of still saying AI, was able to connect with your apps, your data, and your knowledge, and it was able to take actions on your behalf. So it knows the contact details of your mother. It knows the calendar appointment, that you have lunch with her, that she's flying in, that she sent you a text message about the place you were going to. You can ask it just all by asking that you've got how long will it take to get from the airport to the venue, because it's got the details of the maps. And as I was saying before, definitely watch the keynotes. And Apple also spoke about private cloud computing, which we'll talk about in a moment. But Chris, has Apple finally integrated AI in the most natural and most private way compared with everybody else thus far, and getting things right in the way that usually Apple does, and in a way that no other company ever seems to quite be able to do proactively in the same way until Apple does it, and then everyone else copies it in their approach?
Well, we'll have to see. We've got to wait for the rollout of this. I've got to say they gave a really comprehensive roadmap in that time, exactly what they're going to do. And you're right, what they're doing is they're integrating this Apple Intelligence into all their applications. But significantly, we didn't see any demonstrations of this. It was really them telling us what they're going to do. We didn't see, on-screen examples of it working yet. So,
well, I mean, we saw screenshots where you click the button and you could go from a formal response to a simpler response.
We saw that,
if ChatGPT is any guide, well, they should have that all down pat. But sorry, keep going.
Yeah, but I mean, I just wanted to mention that because we didn't see a lot of it in operation, but we heard a lot about what they proposed to do, as well as some other very interesting upgrades, I might add. But if you look at the hub of what people do on their iPads, their iPhones, and
their Macs,
and Macs, apart from phone calls and that, it's a tedium of writing emails, writing replies, dealing with information coming in, and it is really comprehensive. So we're going to see quite comprehensive writing tools in emailing. So not only will it help you create responses to email, but you'll be able to flick through, say, 3 alternate responses, which are in a different tone, and choose the one you want. They'll be able to, Apple Intelligence will be able to proofread documents or proofread articles, like journalist articles, I suppose, that you're going to post there.
It can summarize them for you as well, and surface emails and create images.
One too. There's summarizing. So if you're using, and I suppose you'll have to make sure you use Apple Email and not Gmail, the app there. But what it will do is it'll go through your incoming emails. Instead of you having to read lengthy emails to look at what it's about, for each one, it'll summarize that and put the summary at the top so that you can actually skip through your emails and look at ones that you want to actually read further with a 1 or 2 sentence summary, it looked like, at the top of it. So this gets around the tedium of what is, difficult and time-consuming stuff that you do on laptops and so on. There's plenty of, and this integration is just not with email, and that it's with every Apple app they were saying, like Notes and Pages and all of this. So
Keynote and all the rest, yeah. Look,
yeah,
it really was quite special how they were able to show these features. I mean, we were talking before, Microsoft wants you to pay extra to sort of surface this inside of Office 365 in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. Apple's just putting it everywhere and allowing apps to be able to take advantage of this feature. And I mean, I've seen how Google is going to do things on Android devices. We've heard, how Windows is integrating some of these things through Copilot. But I think, as you were saying, I mean, the comprehensive nature of the way that Apple has rolled this out, and we're all yet to see it, of course. And they did say that this will be coming in the US summer in the beta programs, and there's plenty more features to roll out. So I think we're really going to be continually surprised by what they're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, there will be parts of it that you'll need to have the latest iPhone, which has a NPU, a neural processing unit, for on-device processing. But I would hope that everything else will be available. All the stuff that's processed in the cloud, in their special secure environment that they talked about, will be available more widely. But they did talk a lot about security and made a point of saying that all this dialogue that you might have with Siri, which is the means that you discuss, you talk to this, and is going to be kept private. Apple won't be able to even go there. All the communications will be end-to-end encryption. And so on. They made a big play around that because I think, firstly, it's an Apple thing to be concerned about privacy. Secondly, they would be aware of what was happening with Microsoft in the space with redress, and so that was a big thing. It's going into other areas as well. You'll be, images that you can create, the emojis, the little human-like cartoon type things. You'll be able to get it to go through your photos, find an image of one of your people in your photo library, and explain by word what the emoji you would like with that person in it's going to be, and send that in your messages and stuff like that. And you'll be able to use text to get your device to create video based on your photos. So special memory, special little videos. You'll just describe what you want in it. Say, get these, get my fishing photos taken a couple of weeks ago, and I want to show this sequence of da 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 da, and it'll do that. So
yeah, we'll see. I really recommend people watch the keynote because in that the first hour is Apple showing the features of iOS, iPad, Mac. Interestingly, there was no talk of the AI being available on the Apple Watch. So I think that's going to be one of the new features of the new Apple Watch coming this year. I'll bet any money for that. They talked about the new Vision Pro that came out earlier this year in America, finally coming to Australia next month. But also we saw other features from Apple. You can mirror your iPhone's screen on your MacBook. So if the phone's in another room, you can still operate it fully and completely. And look, there was just so many features that are coming. It's going to radically change the experience for the better. Even the ability, if you've got the AirPod in your ear, and you've got the new OS, and the phone call comes through, and they had a picture of everybody in a lift, and the guy was in the middle, and the phone starts ringing and tells you, "Hey, do you want to answer this call?" You can nod to say yes, or you can shake your head to say no, because it's going to be too too much noise. So
I guess really, so you don't look like a dork saying yes or no to nothing.
To nobody.
So, yeah, they had that. Just very briefly, I'll mention very much in passing. There's phone mirroring. It'll probably be at home. It won't be just about the inconvenience of your phone being in another room. It's probably going to be faster to operate your phone using your keyboard and trackpad from your Mac than it is operating the phone. You might just want to do it that way. I thought the maths notes using Apple Pencil, where was quite amazing. I don't know why you'd do it by hand, but if you want to write formulae on your iPad, you do it with Apple Pencil, and then it'll fill in the result itself.
Yeah.
and if you change any of the parameters in your formulae or that, the result changes. So even though it's a very analog environment, it's very digital in how it operates. A few other things that were interesting. Apple announced a password app, and of course they've had a password capability, but it's a specific password app which is a lot more like the password apps are out there. They also announced that app will be available on Windows laptops.
Yeah.
Which means that people like me who use a lot of Apple devices, but I use Windows as well, are likely to take it up. It's a free app because it has passwords, passphrases. It has the verification codes can be kept there as well. Those rotating codes for different applications. I think it's going to be a winner. But what's going to happen to poor old LastPass, 1Password, BitTorrent? Are they going to bite the dust a bit? And the same with all the AI features we talked about with helping you with your text and that with Grammarly, I suppose.
Yeah, Grammarly. Yeah. Look, there was a thread on X about 20 different companies whose features were about to be Sherlocked. There was a company called Sherlock back in the earlier days before you had an internal search engine on your computer in the earlier Mac days, and they developed this incredible desktop search, but even before you had desktop search with Google on Windows devices in the mid-2000s. And Apple introduced a feature called Watson, which got renamed to Spotlight, and so that company basically got Sherlocked. Their feature disappeared, and that's where Steve Jobs was always very firm in saying, make sure that you don't develop a feature that someone is going to subsume into their operating system because you won't be needed. I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of people who are not using Dropbox anymore because they have OneDrive on their Mac or PC devices, and they have iCloud on their PCs and Macs as well. You can even use iCloud on a PC. So
it becomes a harder business model for those companies. There's one that I'll mention in passing because I think it's important. For years, I've been concerned that in WhatsApp, seeing it's operated through Meta, that it wants access to all your contacts when you actually first start using WhatsApp. It wants to access all your contacts, and they stay in the app when you're using it in case they happen to be WhatsApp members. Now, I've felt uncomfortable for years the fact Meta, in spite what it says, because it says it doesn't access these, has even a whiff of knowing all your contacts, and I dare I say all your all the phone contacts of whoever uses WhatsApp, which is a big slice of the human population. Now, one feature coming out in iOS 18 is going to be you can restrict the contacts that can be accessed by other apps. So I think provided you do it before you give all your contacts to WhatsApp, I think the die has been cast for us, I'm afraid. Then that's a good thing because you could. I don't really. I'm sad to say, because of their behaviour with social media generally, I'm not a great fan of trusting Meta generally, and I won't libel them on this program, but I just don't really trust them, and it's good to have those sort of restrictions coming in on privacy. So that was another one. That was there. And also Smart Script. I don't know why handwriting is such a big deal. I suppose it is to some people, but Apple now your iPad can learn your handwriting, and you can copy text onto that, and it will rewrite it in your handwriting.
In a nicer style.
Write with your Apple Pencil, if you're writing long script handwriting, and your handwriting's not that good, it'll make it look better, and it'll make it look really nice. Again, I'm not sure why people are into handwriting so much. And I'm an older person. God knows what's the situation with Generation Z and X with that. But still, they've done something which I think is probably quite difficult to achieve with that.
Look, I think a lot of older people are going to appreciate the fact they can write notes down. You can scribble out words. You can move text. I mean, if you've got a sheet of paper, you've written something, unless you have one of those invisible ink pens where you can rub it out with the rubber, which was,
right.
I remember in my teenage years, that was a big thing at school at the time. But, that's very inconvenient, and you can't just shove text down. Microsoft has had this for years with its OneNote and the tablet PCs, but it never really took off. But I think once people see this, and again, watch the keynote, you're really going to be surprised. And it's basically, even with Siri, I mean, instead of having a little bubble at the bottom, the whole the edges of the phone are going to shine. And when you're talking to Siri, even if you make a mistake and you say, "Oh, I want to get the weather for one particular place," but instead of saying, the one particular suburb, but you really wanted to say, Bondi instead of, you wanted to say Bondi instead of Bondi Junction, because there might be different weather patterns. If you just say, "I want the weather for Bondi Junction," "Oh, no, actually, I want it for Bondi," Siri's going to understand. So we're going to have this conversational ability to really, I mean, it's going to be like with ChatGPT 4.0, and I can't wait for people to really experience that without having to get any other sort of apps. And just quickly, we've got to go to a break very shortly, but we mentioned it before, but this private cloud compute where Apple has its own M2 Ultra, they didn't say which one it was, but I read about it, their own processors inside of data centers. And when your phone is needing more of the cloud, before it goes to ChatGPT or anything else, to Apple's more advanced AI, it's all encrypted, and you can't just connect to any server. And part of Apple's privacy stance was that the system, like iOS, can be publicly inspected, and these servers can be publicly inspected too. So they say that they're raising the bar because people are really concerned about the privacy of their data, as we were discussing. And I don't see anybody else but Apple really. Everyone talks about ethics and we're going to do all these things. Apple's the one doing it.
They've set a standard that even with third parties, that if your data is going to be in the cloud anywhere, there has to be some sort of certification around the standard of the privacy and protection of that data. So they announced that as well. So yeah, it looks for a good, secure system. And the thing that they explained was that they can have these small language models on the phone, but there's going to be tasks that require a lot more processing, and they'd be much slower unless they could send that data to the cloud for processing.
Yeah, look, it's again, I hope that the Facebooks, the Metas, the Googles, the other companies are encouraged to match Apple on this, because it will increase our privacy. We've been giving it away left, right, and center for the past 20 years. Companies like Google and Facebook have been data mining us relentlessly. They always say that if the product is free, then you're the product. And with Apple, people pay a premium. They give them money voluntarily. They could buy a $200 phone from the service counter in any supermarket, but they go the extra mile to pay more because it's a better experience. But look, Chris, we've got to take another break. So everybody, why not give TNT Radio a follow? We are on all of the major social platforms, including Facebook, X, Instagram, Gab, and Getter. Please help us get the word out there as we cover the biggest topics of our time, right here on today's News Talk, TNT.
Our beautiful world is changing, withering, dying, by the hands of those who don't value nature, even though we all depend on it for life itself. But there is hope. Together with caring friends, the Nature Conservancy can restore our lands, heal our waters, and save our wildlife with big solutions only nature can provide. But every day we lose more of the places we love, and we urgently need to save endangered lands, waters, and wild species. The actions we take today will determine the tomorrow we leave to our children and grandchildren. The water they drink, the air they breathe, the beauty they experience. To learn more about how you can help protect and conserve our beautiful world, visit nature.org today.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear, call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container, because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high. Ha, 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 ha. See, Smokey thinks I'm funny.
Alex Zaharov-Reutt and Talkin' Tech on today's News Talk TNT.
Thanks for joining us again. Now, I'm with Chris Griffith. He is a well-known Australian award-winning technology journalist, and we've been talking all about AI, and we've been talking about what Apple's been doing. But, of course, there's Microsoft and their new Copilot Plus PC Windows 11 computers are launching on June the 18th globally. And these are set apart by the fact they have a Qualcomm Snapdragon X Elite or Snapdragon X Plus processor, which are competitors to the AMD and Intel processors. Now, these computers with Copilot Plus PC designation are coming from Intel and AMD later in the year, but Qualcomm was first. And one of the things that sets it apart is it has the neural processing engine built in. It does 45 trillion operations per second. Microsoft has already showcased at its Build conference a number of AI infused features. I don't think they did quite as good a job as Apple did, but you could have a picture in Paint. You could be drawing things like a mountainside and a castle up the top there, and it could change it into a much more elegant looking image, something that Apple can do as well. But the number one big feature they announced was a thing called Windows Recall, where you could take snapshots of your screen every 3 seconds and then go back through time and see these visual snapshots, and then the AI would be able to determine that you were looking at a blue bag or a suit or a pair of pants or whatever it might be, and you could search for information just by describing it, which is something that has not always worked well in the past. And there were calls for this feature to be recalled, and Microsoft then said, okay, well, we're going to use your face or your fingerprint. You have to be there. And then yesterday it was announced that this feature is going to be put into the Windows Insider program. So Windows 11 Copilot Plus PCs are not going to launch with this new feature. It's going to be delayed, and you'll have to opt in. But Chris, what have you thought about Microsoft's Windows 11 and Copilot Plus PC devices?
Well, I think, just going on recall with that, I'm not a great fan of having that feature in the first place. I don't think it's that necessary, but, I try and organize my bookmarks and stuff like that as I go along. Every 3 seconds to take a snap is really
too much,
blanket coverage of what you've done. I don't know how employees and companies would feel about it if they've got a company Windows computer with that feature, that their bosses of that could literally look, blow by blow how they use their computers.
I mean, I just to answer that question, I do remember during the briefing that, and I remember reading about it in Microsoft blog post, that the feature when it comes will not be switched on by default. I don't think employees can force you to use it. I also asked a question about how much space are these snapshots going to take, and they were saying, well, 15 to 75 gig, and it can be set to delete things. And just very quickly as well, because I definitely want to hear what you think about it. But if you're privately browsing with the in-private browser feature of Edge or other compatible browsers, that won't be saved. And there's a little icon on the taskbar, and if you click it so it's got a line through it, then it's not saving those images. So look, Microsoft has made efforts to make sure that this is going to be harder for people to just hack into, and they've secured it from the start. But it's just been a bit of a balls up in describing it in a way that people love it, as opposed to being instantly suspicious of it because, well, they're suspicious of Microsoft.
Well, I heard there had been successfully accessing it in unencrypted form, so there had been a security issue at some stage.
And what happened there?
Recalling it, which is a good. They're doing the right thing in recalling it. Going through the insider group means that at least they can make decisions about how it's rolled out finally. But it was kind of almost the key feature that they were promoting about the AI offering, and you need to be, if you're a Microsoft 365 user, you'll get things like those writing tools that we talked about before that are going to be available for free with Apple. But you need to have those. So you're going to be paying extra for the tools that I think are the necessary tools to have, or the most useful tools to have with AI on a computer. But we'll just see. I think without spilling the beans. They've got some great devices coming out, and which will be really attractive in their own right, AI or not AI, but they'll be AI capable. It's going to be a really good, positive launch for Microsoft. It's been a bit of a bad time for Intel because Intel was, the key chips used on both Microsoft devices and for a long time Apple devices, and they've lost out to both Qualcomm and of course Nvidia, which got into this space. And I was looked up their respective share prices to see what it meant. Nvidia's is still going up, even though you might think it would be over, come in, it reached its high. It went up 9% just last week, and it's going up and up and up and up stratospherically. Whereas poor old Intel is down to almost where they were at the start of the pandemic. Do you remember when all the shares prices tanked at the start of the pandemic?
I do, yeah.
Intel's kind of getting into that territory with theirs. So they're going to really need, I guess, this opportunity to, as Microsoft has indicated, that they are looking at them and others to provide chips for this in the longer term. But they've struggled, I think. Through
the other big competitor for Intel that's making Intel struggle further is AMD. And Qualcomm's chip does 45 TOPS. That stands for trillion operations per second, and Microsoft says that 40 TOPS is the minimum to be able to have this Copilot plus PC designation. Intel's Lunar Lake chips that are coming later this year that are compatible will do 48 TOPS, so 3 trillion more than Qualcomm. But AMD came out the gate, and they have a chip that competes with NVIDIA as well for the generative AI stuff that's better than this. But their chip is going to do 50 trillion operations per second, 50 TOPS, and they've got another one that's got 60 TOPS. So Intel was the leader for the last 2 or 3 decades, but just like IBM used to be the leader and other companies, GE and other companies, Digital Equipment Corporation, they're in this danger period where they may not survive. But look, we've only got 8 minutes to go, or less than that. We also saw Google launch its new Gemini Pro 1.5 last month, the day after OpenAI's ChatGPT. And they're a huge company, but they seem to be struggling to get AI right compared to ChatGPT, Apple, and Microsoft.
Their offering was a bit more basic. It was kind of like the offering last year from ChatGPT, from OpenAI, rather, which is a real surprise to me. I've got a good story around this because back in 2018, I was one of a few journalists from around the world that was summoned to a big event in Tokyo, where was run by a guy called Jeff Jean, who is a fantastic exponent architect of AI. He is Google's now their AI lead. And that was 2018. We went through all of what Google was going to do with AI. And the occasion was their release to other companies of their hardware called a tensor processing unit, a TPU, capable of 120 trillion ops per second. It was a fast thing. It was made for big companies. And they quoted, I just looked up the stats again, obviously, it could process something like 100 million photos a day. And they developed this, and they were then, in 2018, making it available to other companies to use. And I thought, this company has just got it all there. I'm blown away. They're going to really dominate in this whole machine learning space. And then suddenly last year comes around and OpenAI is there, and Google is struggling. They had to amalgamate their DeepMind and Google Brain divisions. They brought in Sergey Brin, one of their co-founders, to help with all of this, and they were really caught off guard. I don't know why to this day what went on in Google to go from obvious market leader to, they're going to eventually be fine, but they're really, I don't think their offering is really up to the others at this time.
The standard, yeah.
So that was really strange. Now, DeepMind, just to be fair on that, are making huge strides in medicine with a program called AlphaFold, which is around folding proteins. And they've teamed with some of the big US pharmaceutical companies to bring that out. I was privileged enough to, at Mobile World Congress this year in Barcelona, there was an event with Dennis actually talking about this and how it was developing. That is fantastic. So in that area, they're doing great groundbreaking research and stuff that can probably deal with some diseases which our conventional medicines do not. But I don't know what went on there. They have their chatbot and their capability with Gemini, which will be infused with Google
Android
browser and Android devices as well. That's where it's all heading.
Yeah.
But they have struggled strangely, in my view.
Yeah, no, definitely unusual there. Now, there is a lot of concern, of course, with the privacy aspect where AI can rifle through the information on your computer. And in a post on X, Edward Snowden, who, of course, is being pursued by the US and he's moved to Russia to avoid being arrested, he said that open source and free software proponent Richard M. Stallman, RMS as he's known, who has been preaching the values and benefits of open source software, he was basically telling people that these big companies are going to be controlling you and your data. And Edward Snowden said this in response to Adobe putting out new terms and conditions stating that it now has the right to inspect your content. So will we need AI agents built into the operating system in the future to block other AI agents from rifling through our data, even if we've clicked the button that says we agree, because the AI is trying to protect us from other AIs trying to take advantage of us?
Yeah, well, whether it's agents or cybersecurity measures, we're going to have to watch this space really carefully. If it's you talking, your bot talking with another bot, it may not be any more than today. Like if your bot is saying, if you're trying to make a hotel booking and you give your name, address, phone number, basic details like that, well, that's not all that different to what you do now. The issue with the bots is whether the hotel bot keeps that information, just as the issue is whether it keeps that information now. But the big threat would be kind of more clandestine bots that somehow con other bots to give them information or whatever, or somehow how do that. I mean, it's hard to visualize how this would occur, but I think it's a potentially pretty large-scale issue that we have to take notice of as we go forward with this. Yeah, for sure.
Now, we only have about a minute or so left. I've got a couple of closing things I want to mention. But we have seen the Rabbit R1 AI device, which actually turned out to be a customized Android smartphone. They could look at things and do things. And we had the humane pin, like this pin that you put onto your lapel, like a Star Trek communicator, and it would shine a laser onto your palm, and you could manipulate your hand to actually see various things. There was no screen, and both of those devices bombed. The humane pin people actually want to sell that hardware off. So, I mean, it looks to me as though the smartphone is the best hardware of all currently to run this AI revolution.
Well, you know, put it frankly, it's not got the power to do things well. I saw a demo of it where someone said, "Can you tell me where the bathroom is?" Rabbit would be capable of that, but it took 3 minutes to tell that person where the bathroom is. Now, if you're in a hurry, as some of us sometimes are, and you've got to wait 3 minutes to get the answer before you actually have to go to where the bathroom is, then it's a bit of a fail, isn't it, really?
It's a fail, yeah. And look, at the Mobile World Congress or the CES where this was being demonstrated, the founder was like, oh, there's too much Wi-Fi interference here. But when people got it in real life, it was the same. But look, Chris, we do have to go. You're the former editor of Top Australian newspaper.
Senior tech journalist, former senior tech.
You're now a senior tech journalist at The Australian. You're also freelancing for channelnews.com.au and other places. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
It's been a pleasure. It's a fantastically interesting time with great strides forward by the end of the year, but also great issues to be concerned about as we keep saying all along with this journey.
Well, thank you again. Look, you'll see me next week on the Chris Smith Show during the second half of the second hour on Wednesday, and I look forward to your company next weekend. May all your AI-enhanced electric dreams come true. Thanks for joining us on tntradio.live.
On air 24/7. This is today's News Talk Radio, TNT.